Stay tuned to the end of this video for a word to our patrons. Buenos noches, everybody. Welcome back to Let's Talk FGO Wanted, the show where we let you know if you want to roll that 5-star. It's that time again. We've got another Crypto Servant becoming playable, though, the playable version isn't always the same as the one we see in the story. So we've got a limited SSR assassin coming up, Tezcatlipoca. Definitely not a Grand Berserker right now. And in this video, we'll talk about real-life history and folklore, fate lore, mechanics, and more, and stuff. Also, as always, I'm going to apologize for my Nohatl and some other Mesoamerican pronunciations. I'm pretty sure I can say Tezcatlipoca reasonably well, but no other guarantee on the other names. Also, I apologize, not just for my pronunciation, but also my general vibes. As you can probably hear, I'm still a little sick. But the banners don't stop coming, and they don't stop coming. So something hit the ground running, if you know what I'm saying. But let us transition into the history zone. Once again, apologize if I'm a little quiet. There's only so much extra projection I can do with my breathing apparatus in this state. Anyway, Tezcatlipoca, pretty major deity in the Aztec religion, considered one of their creator deities, and he's the patron god of a lot of things, actually. The night, hurricanes, obsidian, providence and good fortune, war and conflict, sorcery, divination, rulership, beauty, more. Lots of things. Lots of stuff on this guy. As you can tell, he's a big deal. The name Tezcatlipoca is usually translated from Nahuatl as smoking mirror, which is itself a reference to obsidian. It's used for mirrors by the Aztecs and surrounding cultures. He also had a lot of other important epithets like creator of man, venerable enemy, the one who creates himself, and lord of the night wind. Night wind in this context is another metaphor, one for being invisible, intangible. Lots of metaphors in these epithets. The Lord of the Night Winds one is also probably pretty important because some surviving text, which sadly we only have so many of because the Catholic Church purged a lot, thanks guys, suggests that properly depicting Tezcatlipoca, it is impossible. He is omnipresent and invisible like the night itself. Tez is also pretty heavily associated with jaguars. The jaguar is his animal counterpart, and as the jaguar, he is also known to be the same as the god Tepeyolatl. Probably not putting enough long on those vowels. Translates roughly as Mountain Heart. He's the jaguar god who rules over caves, earthquakes, echoes, etc. Tez is also sometimes associated with one of the 13-day periods of the Mesoamerican calendar, Trecena, known as Ocelotl, or the month of the jaguar. Weird, I know. And Tepeyolatl rules over the next Trecena, Mazal, the month of the deer. He also may have been a deity with inherent power or association with the calendar in general. There are several codex descriptions of him engraved with basically all the various day signs they have to mark the specific days and the calendar periods. So there was some reason they associated him with all of these symbologies. This does mean that there are some common depictions of him. Usually he's painted or otherwise colored in alternating black and yellow patterns, which may be related to jaguars. He's usually wearing a headdress of feathers, flowers, or flint knives. He's usually pretty blinged out in extra jewelry, and sometimes is seen holding a mirror, which may actually be emitting smoke. He is also usually depicted with one leg, but we'll explain that one in a second. That's got a foundational myth associated with it. But yeah, Tezcatlipoca is so important to the Aztecs. He's part of a brotherhood. There's 4 brothers. They were the sons of the dual deities known as the Ometeotl, and each of them holds the power of creation, so much so that they are known as the Tezcatlipocas, plural. Like it's a big deal. The original flavor of Tez is the Black Tezcatlipoca, Lord of the North, protector of servants, bringer of riches, patron of houses of young men, which would be schools, basically, for young people of communal descent. Tez was one of the senior-most deities in Aztec culture, and so this and all more gives him a lot of extra power. We'll even discuss some of his other factors later. But the other Tezcatlipocas are, the blue Tezcatlipoca is Huitzilipochtli, the hummingbird, the god of war. Not that all of these guys aren't associated with war, but it's another one that's in his factor zone. And the sun, ruler of the south. Huitzilipochtli is believed to have protected the people as they moved from their semi-mythical homeland of Aztlán to the Mexico Valley. He is said to have organized the night sky. sprung forth from his mother's womb fully armed to kill his sister, who became the moon, and a lot of his siblings, who became the stars. Because they were going to do him in utero for having a ball of feathers for a dad. Man, talk about rough family. As the solar deity, the Aztecs believed that he needed to be fed with human blood daily. Again, we'll loop back to that myth, but he's very important, the blue guy. It's a big deal. The red Tezcatlipoca is Xipetotec, the Flayed One, Lord of the East, a god of craftsmen, agriculture, rebirth, liberation, and also sometimes war. Specifically, Xipetotec is said to have invented war as a concept, but he's not always about war now. Totec is associated with ritual sacrifice and flaying to allow the seasons to be renewed, crops to grow. It's said that he taught humans how to sustain themselves and fed them by giving of them his flesh, which represents the maize. Don't know why we decided corn is made of God. He's also sometimes called the night drinker for drinking night rains, which are very important. Also, I've misspelled the wrong rains in my script here. Very rain AP pilled. But last and certainly not least, we have the white Tezcatlipoca, Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent, the god of life, light, wisdom, the morning star, aka Venus, patron of priests, responsible for all things technical and learning-based, Lord of the West. According to legends relating around the four Tezcatlipocas, Quetzalcoatl was the ruler of Tula, capital of the Toltecs, and did not take any human sacrifices, only birds, snakes, and butterflies. There was also probably a semi-historical ruler also actually named Quetzalcoatl, but Tezcatlipoca expelled him from Tula through the use of black magics, and then Quetzalcoatl self-immolated and became the planet Venus. This probably reflects a real-life shift of religious favoritism which occurred, actually. Like, at some point, there was a pivot from Quetz to Tez, and it was represented as such. And since I'm still sick and have to speak this script out loud, we're going to speedrun a couple of the major Tezcatlipoca myths. You can find out more by looking up and studying the codexes yourself. So, first, why we may call Tezcatlipoca, a creator deity of men, and also the leg thing. So, together with his brother, by the way, Quetz, he helped create the world. There's a couple different versions of this. One we're going to talk about is in the primordial times. Basically, the world was some nothing, some primordial ocean, and the earth beast, Tezcatli, which means caiman or crocodile pretty literally. Tezcatli is referred to as having elements of crocodile, fish, and frog, so it's just your primordial water monster. Anyway, anything the four boys, the four Tezes create, falls into the ocean and gets eaten. So, tired of this, Tez and Quetz hatch a plan, which involves using Tez's leg as bait, which Tezcatli bites off, hence the one-legged depictions. And then the boys capture it and use its body to form the shape of the world. Pretty normal Chaos Comp stuff. But Tezcatli is only mostly dead, so human sacrifices started as a process to keep it quiet. Otherwise, it might wake up and eat everybody. Why the Aztecs and other tribes in Mexico thought that, the earth was constantly trying to eat them, who knows? Anyway, this immediately rolls into one of the other popular myths, which is the myth of the five suns. So we created the world, we have mountains and land and stuff now, and we have humans, who are giants, actually, right now, and some other gods. So we need a sun. So Tezcatlipoca becomes the sun. But for various reasons, it's, suggested in, database sites and encyclopedias that it's an either-or. So I don't know if that's, in the context of the actual stories say that, or people are just guessing based on translating the codexes, but it's either because he only has one leg, or because he's a god of the night, he can only make half a sun. But it's fine. He did it. This is fine for a while, but eventually Quetzalcoatl gets tired of Tezcatlipoca and knocks him out of the sky with a giant stone club. This gets Tez so peeved that he commands his army of jaguars to eat all humans and everything, destroying the world. Thus, Jaguar Sun. Next is the Wind Sun, Quetzalcoatl himself. They make some new humans. These are normal-sized, but they are flawed. So eventually, they drift away from the gods and become corrupt. So Tezcatlipoca, being a great wizard, punishes them by transforming them into monkeys with his magic. This peeves off Quetz, who was rather fond of the humans, and banishes all the monkeys with a great wind, and then stops being the sun so he can make new, less flawed humans. We're looking at, by the way, a reverse Golden Age scenario. Oh, we're not as bad as those humans. Those guys sucked so much they got turned into monkeys. So the next was the Rain Sun, Tlaloc, god of rain and some other stuff. This world was perfectly fine until Tezcatlipoca decided to bang Tlaloc's wife, Xixquetzal, the goddess of love and beauty. This made Tlaloc so peeved that he couldn't fulfill his duties and struck the land with a great drought. Wasn't making it rain. The people prayed for rain until Tlaloc ultimately decided to make it rain fire, which burned the entire world down, and we had to start again. So next, the Water Sun, the goddess of waters. Oh boy, this is a long one, and I've got a cough. I don't know if I can say all this. It's Tezcatlipoca? I'm probably missing a consonant in there. The goddess of water is known as the Jade Skirt. Tlaloc's rebound girl. She is a perfectly kind and functional sun who dotes on her worshippers until, guess who? Tezcatlipoca decides to start some shit. He calls her a faker. He says that she's not actually kind. It's all just an act. And this makes her so sad, she weeps blood for 52 years, forcing all remaining humans to become fish to survive. And now we need a new world. This brings us to our last and current sun, unless something happened that I wasn't aware of, known as the Earthquake Sun. That sun is, for the aforementioned Tezcatlipoca. He's a pretty good sun, but his siblings, the moon and stars, are peeved he gets more attention than them, so they attack him every night. He beats them back every morning. This is why he requires regular human sacrifice. He needs fresh human blood every day to make sure that he's awake enough to defeat them. You know, it's like coffee, but with blood. If Tezcatlipoca fails, the world will be destroyed by earthquakes. So what you may infer from these legends is that Tezcatlipoca is actually the patron god of pot stirring. The Aztecs would have a perfectly fine and normal world if Tezcatlipoca could shut the fuck up for a couple of epochs. Tezcatlipoca is also associated with the festival of Tezcatl. I'm pretty sure that's a closer pronunciation than my instinct to say Toxcal, but there is an X in it. Anyway, this may be thematically similar if you've been following Lost Belt 7 Part 1. Involves a young male prisoner who's picked to serve as Tezcatlipoca for a year. He's adorned in jewels, he plays a flute, he gets married to 4 ladies representing various goddesses, he wanders around the town playing his flute, is hailed as the god Tezcatlipoca, smokes some tobacco, until the time for the festival where he walks up the stairs of the temple and has his heart cut out. So yeah, it's great. Also, being such an important guy, there are probably some mythological links between Tez and the deities of preceding cultures like the Olmec and the Maya. The classical Mayan period god Cahuil is associated with lightning and creation. He's sometimes depicted as having an obsidian knife in his forehead and a serpent for a leg. In some Mayan cultures, there's Tohil, the god of fire, and associated with mountains and sacrifice. There's also Huracan, whose name is the origin of the word hurricane, and known as the heart of the sky, a one-legged god associated with storms, winds, fire, but also a creator deity. So, you know, there's a lot of overlapping themes, which could be connected, could be not connected. It could be the kind of thing where, like, as often happens, the Aztec, Mexica tribes came up and saw some stuff they liked from older cultures and were like, yeah, that's the same as ours. Or it could be like a natural drift. But that means we're going to move to lore time. Lore time. And number 1, it's Fate. If you've been in this franchise a while, which you haven't, hi, welcome. But if you have, you've probably got a couple of questions if, you've been in this business a while. So, number 1, Tezcatlipoca is a divine spirit, and a pretty powerful one at that, so how is he summonable? Normally, you're not supposed to do that. The answer, of course, is he's cheating. He's pretty strong, so he has handcrafted, using his own authorities, a human body for him to possess, which makes him a pseudo-servant, and technically, you'll see in a second, he has the living human trait as well. But because he created the body he's possessing himself, there's no outside elements or influence on it. It's just Tez. He does have limits to his authority, how much of his divine portfolio he can wield as a servant, but it does give him other benefits. So, no use beating around the bush. In the Lost Belt era, Tezcatlipoca is Daebit Semovoid's servant. Normally, depending on how he feels, he should probably be a berserker or ruler. In story, he's referred to as a berserker, but also he does have the ability to touch his extra authorities if he feels like it, so he can, probably shift that around. But the version of him that appears in Chaldea is an assassin for specific reasons relating to the Old Man of the Mountain we're not going to get in. He first appears on screen in LB4 and is referred to as Grand Berserker, though at the time he's shrouded in his night winds of black smoke and has a cloaked sprite. Also in Yu Ogomori's Dream, he's the Grand Berserker. So obviously he has the qualification for Grand, though normally Divine Spirits aren't supposed to do that, but again, he's cheating. And he's clearly got the stones for it, but we don't know the exact qualification for Grand Berserker or Assassin. Generally, the special quality that Grands require is that they have some sort of, very advanced ability. Caster is supposed to have exceptional clairvoyance. It seems like the requirement for Archer or Lancer is certain Noble Phantasm powers, which, conceptually allow them to defeat normally immortal, impossible enemies, etc. We're not exactly sure which of Tez's powers allows him to do that, but technically, since he has, at least when juiced by a command spell, has temporary omniscience, he's supposed to be the omnipresent boy. It's a very interesting one. Also, by the way, fun note, you'll see it again when we talk about the mechanics, but talking about how Tez isn't normally supposed to be an assassin, that is still a little funny, given some things I'm about to say, because he doesn't have presence concealment, even though arguably he probably should, because he is the Lord of Nightwind. He is supposed to be an omnipresent, invisible, intangible guy. Like, normally that seems like the kind of thing that would be going for him, but, the writing and balancing doesn't always work out that way. As mentioned, he has that cameo in Lost Belt 4. He's also a major character in Lost Belt 7, Mictlan, for obvious reasons. You'll get to see a lot of him, and it showcases a lot of his abilities. Fun fact, Tez was not going to be a central character to LB7 at first, but in interviews, ding ding, we should start a drinking game for that one now. But Nasu said that he and the team were doing research and just showed how multifaceted this guy was, and decided to give him more screen time to show off more of the stuff they learned, because he does have a lot of stuff going on. Also, I think Nasu figured out the thing about the 4 Tezcatlipocas, and that seems like right up his alley of just like guys who are the same guy but different. Once again, see the Morgan discussion about how, oops, Morgan is 3 people. How is she 3 people? Does she have, dissociative identity disorder, or is she just that good at multitasking? Who knows? Tezcatlipoca has been named and suggested as possibly appearing way earlier, though. He was mentioned in the dialogue and profile of Quetzalcoatl, who appeared all the way back in Babylonia, Singularity 7, since they are arch rivals. And yes, since then, Ketz has had a profile note suggesting that she was talking to Tezcatlipoca, so they probably had a rough idea of using him at some point by that stage. Very similar to how Idisfield, Dress of Heaven, has a line for Rasputin, which only makes sense in the context of our last Wanted video. And I did mention that because Tezcatlipoca is a class of deity, he can also, use personality, authority, and traits from the other Tezcatlipocas. In particular, some of his other ascensions mix in elements of the Red Tezcatlipoca. Also, if you're curious, the gun he has is based on a Walther P38, but he added an axe blade because he's a freak. He's freaky like that. Anyway, we'll step over to mechanics. Okay, mechanics. So the summonable Tez is an assassin who, oddly enough, rocks the higher HP, lower attack style. He has pretty big HP for an assassin. Very lower attack. He's quick, 2 arts, 2 buster. Q-ab. Average hits. Little bit low NP gain. Don't worry, he makes up for it. He's an arts AoE NP, that's hits all enemies. It gives him Pierce Invul for 1 turn first, gives the party 10% gauge as a result. The overcharge effect is NP damage up for 3 turns. You can't see, so I didn't even know why I bothered, but I held up 2 fingers when I said 3 turns. Something wrong with me today. Anyway, it's a solid little loot package. Free piercing, NP damage up to encourage you to go again. Pretty good stuff. His first skill is a unique charisma, gives the normal 10 to 20% attack up for 3 turns for the whole team, and then a second 10 to 20% attack up for a total of 40 if the ally has a guts buff currently on them. They must have guts for it to trigger. Second skill is a 30-50% battery on self. It's a 20 to 30% battery for the team. It also gives everybody on the squad 2 hits, 3 turns of invulnerable, but gives them an invincible block for 1 time, 3 turns after that. So it's harder to string together multiple invincibles, but still, got some funny stuff. His third skill is fairly crazy for its damage potential here. So he's got, first of all, it's a 1k to 3k guts for 1 time, 3 turns. So a decent guts, which also means he can target himself with his charisma. It's got a normal 20 to 30% arts up for 3 on himself, but also it has 2 trait damages for a 30 to 50% damage up versus both divine enemies and super large enemies for 3 turns. And then it rounds it out with another unique buff where he negates the Sunlight Battlefield trait for 3 turns. Just, no, none of it. So, fairly robust collection of steroids and defenses there. Pretty tough guy. For passives, like I said, they are completely alien to an assassin. He's got Magic Resistance A, Territory Creation A, so those arts do hit a little above their weight class. He also has a unique passive for 10% on his Buster cards, and Divinity C for a little bit extra damage. He also has a fairly unique passive skill, which is the effectiveness of Master Skills is improved by 10% when he's on the field, just in general. Very fun little one. So all in all, you can probably tell, if you've played FGO for a while at all, Tezcatlipoca's got a pretty clear niche. He's a sweeper. You use him for clearing waves, probably for farming, but also you can use him to sweep ads and boss fights for story and challenge content. He's got an NP that's AoE, it's arts, it always pierces, so that's got some inherent Rossetti potential, with the 10% battery, and it's encouraging you to loop because it's got the NP damage up for 3 turns. It wants you to be able to fire it within that window. I feel like almost all servants that have, give yourself NP damage up for 3 turns on NP are, trying to tell you that, hey, can you get this to hit again? Because it starts stacking up. He has multiple damage steroids that includes his attack, his arts, and also trait damage, which can be good for both mobs and bosses. Divinity is a very, very common trait, and super large is pretty common for both normal, like, story bosses, but also sometimes boss mob waves are usually pretty big. Also, he still has defensive options is another thing. He's not oops all offense. He's got a higher HP pool, he's got a average level guts, and he has a 2 hits 3 turns invul, which is very good, even if it has a demerit. And he's got squad battery. It's not as crazy as some of the stuff that people labbed out for, like, Romulus Queerness or Super Orion. Like, obviously, Super Orion's solo damage, when you can guarantee the proc of all of his abilities, is, like, crazy. He's getting, like, 400% crit damage in one turn. And I don't remember the exact math because it's been a while since anybody labbed it out, but the thing Romulus Queerness can do with, like, making his enemies Roman and then doing extra Roma damage is, like, also pretty intense after he gets going. Tez doesn't really do any kind of, like, unique trait or huge buff stacks, but he has enough diverse modifiers. He's got NP damage up on his NP. He's got an attack up. He can make that attack up quite large because he can guts himself. He's got an arts up, and he's got a trait damage, like the only thing he's missing. Actually, no, he has damage plus built in because he's got divinity. So, like, yeah, no, you're hitting all of the core steroids you can apply to Noble Phantasm damage. So he's going to fulfill your assassin needs quite nicely. He's well-rounded. He'll last in tough content. He can also presumably be clear in waves, now that it's that hard to loop with certain team comps we'll discuss in a second. But also he has, multiple batteries and stuff. So he's very well built for it. A robust assassin. Which, honestly, is a thing. This is a conversation that's happening a lot in JP, because Kama just got a buff, which is a little crazy, because I think she's the latest single-target assassin. They still haven't made another, like, 5-star single-target assassin since Kama, I don't think. So it's pretty crazy that, like, our response isn't, we've invented a new 5-star assassin single-target for you to go for. It's, we just buff Kama. That, like, assassins are not always hitting on all cylinders. Anyway, this means for team comps, you should consider a Castoria. She gives arts up, attack up, and NP gain up. She also has additional damage traits. Her anti-purge defense is a separate buff from invul block, so that anti-purge defense is separate from invincible, I should phrase that as, so you understand what I'm talking about, which means she should dodge the invul block. And if you're double Castoriaing, you have 2 invincibles anyway. Not that you need them, but it's one of those things where, like, you have multiples to work with. Not that you necessarily need to go double, because Tez himself has a 50% self-battery. Tamamo can bring you healing and cooldown reduction into the mix, which can be pretty good. Tez's second skill has a pretty long cooldown. But also, don't sleep on Paracelsus as a budget art supporter, because he has a targetable guts, which means that he can give whoever needs it in your team comp the guts to proc Tez's 40% attack up. Tez doesn't do critical damage very much on his own, so Lady Avalon isn't as important. But if you want to do some funny stuff with guts and arts, you can also consider Taisui and Asclepius as your alternative budget options. If you want to use him as off DPS support for a boss killer, it's a couple of blue single targets with guts to take advantage of his big attack boost. Nemo is one of those, which would have some synergy because Nemo is also anti-super large, though he prefers to be on wet fields. Also, this is kind of supported in the fiction. Like, Tez and Nemo actually talk to each other a couple of times. But for big single targeters, you also want to keep in mind, for Berserkers, Vlad 3 and Galatea are both arts Berserkers with a guts who are single target, get that damage boosted. And a soon-to-be-coming up unit, who is an assassin, which may work out better for your class advantages, is the 4-star Locusta. If you want to try some weird poison stats, she also has some gut stuff you can consider. And like I said, she's an assassin who's coming up this year, who that means that you're going to line up the class advantage probably better. For CEs, I mean, it's pretty easy. Tez has the magical 50% number. That unlocks a lot of your favorite options. Attack up, arts up, NP up, whatever. Just pick something that gives you a 50% starting charge and let her rip. Probably means that you can get some crazy refunding loops, even if you've got, bad passive NP gain from guys. By which I mean that separate from your own NP gain strats, different enemy classes give you different amounts of refund back, which is very annoying. I think riders are good, though. It's assassins and berserkers that are a little low. Anyway, you could even go for overcharge levels, because that procs his NP damage up first, so that is both like an extra steroid and also has returning value if he can loop around. If you are employing a Castoria rotation, you don't even need to go that far. You can use any old CE to just boost your damage to infinity and beyond. Anything you want there. Usually sweepers use Black Grail or Heaven's Feel, the CEs that super maximize your NP damage potential, but there's a few options anywhere in there. Once again, in general, improve attack, improve arts, improve NP damage. If you are just 3-turn farming and you can make that work, you don't need to worry about necessarily attack or arts up specifically, because NP damage up is the only card you're going to proc, but, not everybody is prepared to do 90-plus sweeps instantly. You got to do a little bit of work first. Because by work, I mean leveling. And I regret to inform you that mats are going to be a little problematic. Tez is a brand new limited for a brand new story drop, so to ascend, he needs 36 brand new obsidian knives, and then he's going to need another 72 per skill. So you're going to have to budget carefully or bust out your pure prisms. Luckily, after we finish this story content drop, you'll be able to access the free quests finally, but even so, it's bronze, it's new, there's a lot of them, it sucks. So this does mean that you will have to work to get your Tez into position to do all that fun stuff I said he can do. Tezcatlipoca has a few rate-ups. Obviously, we're about to do the Lost Belt 7 Part 2 release, and then also this summer he has a brief window, and he'll have a late one next year, 2026, for the Lost Belt 7 Clear campaign. Sorry. And also, presume that sometime in 2 years from now in English, he'll get one whenever JP gets to their assassin phase in their current, we're literally rerunning every servant in the game plan. And he is limited, so he will appear in all future Lucky Bag and Destiny Summon GSSRs. But yeah, that should be about everything. Remember, the sun of the deadly laser, and I will see you in about a week for Cuckoo. Hopefully my lungs are better then. And yes, I used Dawn Trail music for this video. Yes, I will do it again. You can't stop me. But if you liked that bit, you can click the like button. Leave a comment down below. Join our Discord. Make sure you're subbed and you ring the bell so you can not only get this video, but also get the Wanted of our KukulCon and other future Wanteds. Check out our other stuff going on. You can support us by joining our channel memberships or by hitting us up on Patreon. There's a link in the description, and also patreon.com/Studio Omega YT. I had to put the YT in there. Check us out. You could have gotten this video early. I will have more specific shoutouts for our patrons after the musical outro, which is now. And speaking of our patrons, shout out to all of our patrons, but especially Adam DeHarp, Black Dust OG, Call Me Zed, Carlos, Dragon, JDB9000, Chris Starlight, Legendary Boss Hunter, Rise of Kenji, Rogue Robin, Sharvor, some guy named Bob, and Barry the Crow. Thank you very much for your support, everybody. Consider dropping us a line on Patreon, and we'll see you next time.